अस्सलाम वालेकुम। CS411 का मिड टर्म एग्ज़ाम्स आने वाले हैं तो उसकी तैयारी करते हैं जी। अ क्लास कैन इनहेरिट फ्रॉम सिंगल क्लासेस। अच्छा, ये एक फ़ाइल है जिससे आप तैयारी करें तो मोस्टली MCQs से आएंगे, ठीक है। During the program execution, program can be stopped with breakpoints. Types not defined in any namespace are said reside in the global namespace. Indexers are similar to properties but are accessed via index argument rather than a property name. At the same time an event is fired, the registered method will be invoked. Which of following does not include event processing operation terminating events? The result of exception can bring inconsistency in the program. COOL stands for C like object-oriented language. The initial name was COOL, which stands for C like object-oriented. Graphical user interfaces and the event-driven model is not applied on console applications. Graphical user interface and event-driven model as applied to desktop, web and mobile applications. The easiest way to declare an event is to put the event keyword in front of a delegate member. Which of the following does not include an event processing operation? Terminating events. Events are based on the principle of decoupling. Events are based on the principle of decoupling. Anonymous methods do not have names. Event consumer is an entity that receives event from the system. Event consumer की definition भी यहाँ पे लिखी हुई है. An event consumer is an entity at the edge of an event processing system that receives event from the system. An event is a list of delegates. Event is an occurrence with a particular system or domain. So what is an event? It is an occurrence within a particular system or domain. Which of the following is an occurrence within a particular system or domain? Event. It is an occurrence within a particular system or domain. Which statement is true? A finally block always execute whether or not an exception is thrown and whether or not the try blocks runs to completion. Clean room design is also called Chinese wall technique. Clean room design is useful as a defense against copyright and trade secret infringement. Clean room design is useful as a defense against copyright and trade secret infringement because it relies on independent invention. Which of following is an entity that introduces event into the system? Event producer. Anonymous methods reduce the code size. Anonymous methods result in much less code. Which of the following is built in from request response? Service oriented architecture. The system.console is a class which enables us to do console input and output. Probabilistic events may or may not related to an actual occurrence. A fraud detection event on a banking transaction. Which the following event may or may not relate to an actual occurrence? Probabilistic events. ये MCQs repeated है. Probabilistic events may or not ये भी repeated है. XML document method reads the whole document in memory. There are two methods to read XML document using XML document or XML reader. अच्छा, what wait for a single event is blocking operation. The main method returns a non-zero value which indicates the error in a program. system.windows.controls buttons equals to new systems.control.buttons b content equals to okay. For the above code written in C hash, the corresponding XML code will be. ये है स्कीमा माइक्रोसॉफ्ट प्रेजेंटेशन का, और इसमें डायरेक्ट लिंक अटैच होगा, कोई पहले ओके कंटेंट इस तरह नहीं आएगा. If we want to move an object in the 2D XY coordinate system, then which transform class will be used? Translate transform. If we want to scale an object in the which of the following are not derived from control class? None of the above. List box, status bar, both या none. Which of the following is not derived from control class? ये भी सेम है. Which of the following is not derived? ये भी सेम है. WPF4 was released in 2010. Suppose we want to restrict the user to do not decrease the height of WPF element from a specific amount, then which property will be used? Minimum height. Which property will be used if we want to restrict the user to don't decrease the width of WPF document from a specific amount, maximum width. XML specification defines rules that maps .NET namespaces, types, properties and events into dash. XML namespace, XML elements या XML attributes तीनों आएंगे इसके अंदर. Dependency properties are represented by system.windows dependency property. Extension methods can only be defined in static class. Extension methods cannot access the private data members of the class in which they are extended. WPF allows to keep the user interface description and implementation separate. In context of XML child elements, if the child is plain text and the type converter exists to transform the child into parent type, properties are set to on the parent element, treat the child as the input to the type converter, use the output as the parent object instance. We use UI elements property clip to bounds true when we want area child element don't cross the boundary of parent. ठीक है जी. BAML is compressed representation of XAML. BML is a binary application markup language. It just compressed representation of XAML. AML is compressed representation of XAML. अच्छा हाँ ठीक है. compressed representation है XML की, मतलब कि XML बड़ा हो जाता है तो फिर AML यूज़ किया जाता है. If we exclude the mechanism of calling the objects through name, then code will not compile. View box elements use different type of stretching with the help of stretch property. There is 4 possible values of stretch. BML stands for binary application markup language. Which is the right syntax to define an interface? इंटरफेस डिफाइन करने के लिए इंटरफेस माई इंटरफेस उसका नेम आ जाएगा, ब्रैकेट वॉइड मेथड टू इम्प्लीमेंट, और ठीक है वॉइड मेथड टू इम्प्लीमेंट, और उसके बाद ब्रैकेट्स भी आएंगी, सेमीकोलन मस्ट है. इफ़ यू वांट टू प्लेस अ कंपोनेंट एट द टॉप इन डॉक्यूमेंट पैनल, देन विच वन इज़ करेक्ट सिंटैक्स? डॉक्यूमेंट पैनल डॉक इक्वल्स टू टॉप. अच्छा, ये अगर फ़ाइल आप में से किसी को अगर चाहिए तो कमेंट करें, मैं इंशाल्लाह उसको प्रोवाइड करूँगी जिसने भी तैयारी करनी है. डॉक्यूमेंट पैनल अलाउ इजी एलिमेंट्स टू एंटायर साइड. ट्रू. कॉमन इवेंट प्रोसेसिंग operations include reading, creating, transforming and deleting events. The dots in the namespace indicate hierarchy of nested namespaces. जब आपने ज़्यादा सारे नेम स्पेसेस ऐड करने होंगे तो डॉट्स का इस्तेमाल करें. द इंटरफेस फोर्सेज ईच कंपोनेंट टू एक्सपोज स्पेसिफिक public members that will be used in a certain way. Static CTR exists to initialize class static members and called only once. Static CTOR. अच्छा इसका तो था ना वो मुझे अभी याद नहीं आ रहा. मतलब ओनली वंस के लिए यूज़ किया जाता है. अच्छा is exists to initialize class static members and has many parameters. Interface defines a contract true. Additionally, XML namespaces must be given a distinct prefix to be used on an identifier from the namespace. We want the width of the button should cover the whole width of the stack panel in WPF. And what should be the value of horizontal argument property of the button? Stretch को यूज़ करके आप उसको पूरे पेज पे कवर कर सकते हैं. The root object element in XML must specify at least one XML namespace that is used to quality itself and any child elements. In event-driven architecture (EDA), event producer sends events to event consumer. Auto-implemented properties do not allow simplified syntax. Auto-implemented properties improve the common case we saw. Here is some example using auto-implemented properties. Properties have the same idea as getter and setter. They just allow simplified syntax. The initial name for C hash was cool. Cool ही रहने देते तो अच्छा था. Events may live outside events like in events log. If we run the program within a Visual Studio, the console window disappears quickly, so we can use console.read line to keep screen going away. Types of class members in C# are instance and static. Mapping of WPF namespace is hard coded inside the WPF assemblies. अच्छा लंबी होती जा रही वीडियो, जल्दी पढ़ेंगे. Polymorphism needs the signature to be the same. The code given below is equivalent to. अच्छा इसको जो वाइट है आप टैग्स के अलावा इक्वल के बाद भी लिख सकते हैं, टैग के अंदर ही, और उसको क्लोज कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. Indexer enables your class to be treated like an array. Reference types hold the reference to an object in memory. True attributes of a program can be queued at runtime through reflection. Object variables are reference to original object, not the object themselves. Console class can reside in multiple libraries. True service-oriented architecture is built from request response, and it moves away from monolithic applications. It is always possible to create an instance of a reference type. False. Visual Studio has a snippet called propdb that automatically expands into a definition of a dependency property, which makes definition 1 much faster than doing all the typing yourself. अच्छा सही है. CLI stands for Common Language Infrastructure. Event processing is said to be stateless if the way it produces an event does not influence the way it processes any subsequent events. Framework element is the base class that adds support for some common mechanism for window-based control data binding styles. उसके बाद है जी jagged is basically array of arrays. The use directive can be used to rename a long namespace in the current file. True. Drive class is exactly the same as base. True. अच्छा cast back to base type to call a overdriven method of base. Polymorphism invoke drive class method through base class reference during runtime. Interfaces are inherited by classes provide the real implementation. An object initializer is syntax for initializing a struct without using a CTOR. True. Attributes add metadata to your program. Enum of one type may not be implicitly assigned to any enum of another type. Default value of first member is 0. Namespace do not allow name reuse. False. Reuse हो सकते हैं. Indexers can take any number of parameters. Indexers कोई भी नंबर ले सकते हैं. Parameters जितने चाहें ले सकते हैं. Drive event is generated as a result of event that take place inside an event processing. Console is a static class in the system namespace. Value type hold their value in memory where they are declared. We can add constructors to a struct and can also hold the default CTOR which initialize everything to default value. An initializer list can be used to alternate constructor to C# event is a class member that is activated whenever the event it was designed for occurs. A single exception can be handled differently. WPF stands for Windows Presentation Foundation. अच्छा जी, हमने आज कर लिए हैं 104 MCQs. होप सो इनमें से कोई पेपर में से आए, पेपर में लाजमी आए ताकि हमारा जो पेपर है, आप लोग का पेपर है, वो अच्छा हो जाए. बेस्ट ऑफ लक. अल्लाह हाफिज़.